anyone could ever want.
Hello, buddy. Hmm. Hmm. Has gifting been suspended for my account? Hello. Guess what? I shouldn't have gone to sleep last night, probably recording, because I thought I was going to get a warning, and they said no. But then I did. And because of that, I don't get any gifting for 7 days. So I can't make any TikTok money for 7 days. And live visibility is restricted. TikTok is so harsh. I pressed appeal. See how it goes. Hello. Guess what? TikTok is so harsh. You missed my live on TikTok this morning. Bless you, buddy. It wasn't too long. The food was tasty. It was, Colin.
childhood development triangle. So it's just 3 sides of this triangle. So when you're growing up, what did that child have to do most of the time to earn and keep friends? So friends is one. And then to feel safe. What did the kid have to do to feel safe? For some kids, safety was like, I don't know, somebody gives me a hug at the end of the day. For some kids, it was like, am I going to eat today?
For some kids, it's like cracking jokes.
Yeah, I'm going to crack jokes and keep friends. I'm going to feel safe by becoming really loud and dominating the room. I'm going to become safe by getting really small and shrinking so nobody notices me. Or I'm going to become safe by being hyper vigilant because I don't know if dad drank before he got home or if he's going to start drinking when he got home. So it's like, what are the scripts that child needed to run on autopilot to feel safe, to make friends, and then to get rewards? And that would be the third side. And the rewards for some kids might just be like appreciation, and it's typically just appreciation, affection, love. And that tends to get written in childhood, and the kid who writes all these permanent scripts, they put them in a backpack and carry them all the way into adulthood. And 90% of us are walking around with this exact triangle governing our life. And if you look around at people at work, you see this woman who every time there's a meeting, she wants to speak up a lot, but then she shuts her mouth and her body shuts down and all that kind of stuff. You're seeing an 8-year-old who got yelled at a family dinner table. That's all. But you're just seeing it in a grown-up body.
But what if one part of this triangle, or one behavior I've learned for safety or for rewards or for friends, is making my life worse?
Yeah.
You know, it could be ruining my life. Like, it could be the thing standing in the way of me having a romantic relationship or getting a promotion or building a business. It's like getting in the way now.
Yeah.
What do I do, Chase?
So you've identified the pattern. Let's assume that you've got it. You're like, oh, I've got this shit that's happening on repeat. The part 2 of this is I need to focus on that being a kid. That belongs to a child. And I need to write down like this. Here's how the child wrote the contract, made the promise to themselves, developed the contract. And then even if you make it up, like I'm going to write down a little thing. When did this kid bring it into adulthood? I need to stay small in order to stay safe. Let's say it's one of those things. And then you just start telling yourself that is a child's voice. That's a child's voice. So the voice is not going to go away. That's the sad part. That's like you trying to not complete the sentence, Mary had a little in your head. You can't get rid of it. No matter how hard you try to delete that, it's repeated over years and years. Just like one of these things. What truly changes for you is hearing a child, hearing a misguided child who developed a coping mechanism for the world. Not knowing that they just assumed, I'm going to have this forever. I'm going to need this as an adult. I'm going to bring this into my adult life. Part 2 of this is you make a wallpaper or something for your desktop. And we're talking about being negatively motivated. We're away from negative things. You make a motivational wallpaper that has your big limiting belief on it, and then take it to an extreme. I had a client that had this, if I stay small, I'm going to be safe. And he was in a business, like he owned a business, but he wouldn't go get these big clients, and he wouldn't go do this. The guy's got 3 kids. And I said, I want you to make a desktop wallpaper that says, my kids don't deserve for me to be successful. And I want you to look at it every single day when you turn your computer on, because that's exactly what your belief is saying. Because if your kids truly deserved it, it would override the belief. So you just need to write the belief in plain English, and what it's truly, truly costing you in your life is, my kids don't deserve me to be successful. My kids don't deserve money. And that's what it comes down to. And every day you look at it, you have a feeling of disgust, and there's a hyper awareness of that thing running in your head. You're going to be more prone to hear it when it does come up. And you're also training yourself to hear it as a child's voice, which means you're going to start hearing fiction. You're still hearing the same sentence, but you're hearing a fictional story.
Like, I think one of the best realizations I ever had was realizing that the bullshit that I've carried with me in that backpack since I was a kid, that the stuff about what will make me safe or what will reward me or how I'll make friends or who I am, whatever, my survival mechanisms, they will be with me forever. And actually, instead of delete them, like throw them out.
This is a classic example of white privilege. And you both have it.
What's that?
Anyone want to fill them in?
Yeah, I'll do it. So, white privilege is when white people, usually men, automatically assume they can take whatever they want. And they never have to worry about getting stopped by the police. And they have the inside track for any job they want.
They have the inside track for any job they want.
Exactly, Gage. Thank you for that. That's white privilege.
We have that?
You sure do.
I think. I never realized this stuff. Yeah, we really opened up.
Yeah, bro, I can't go. I already told you.
I do not get this.
You don't get what?
I don't get you guys. I mean, you guys just do.
There's a filter you can use. I did not know that.
If you want to know somebody's real character, don't listen to just what they talk about. Listen to what they brag about. Listen to what they complain about. And listen to what they laugh about. Bragging reveals what they truly treasure. Complaining shows what they think they deserve. And what they laugh at, that reveals their heart. Most people can control what they say, but they can rarely control anything else. So try that and follow.
Provoking a man until he finally breaks and then painting yourself as the victim is not just dishonest. It is one of the most damaging things you can do to a good person. You cannot disrespect him every day, belittle him when he is vulnerable, emasculate him for his limitations, ignore everything he needs, and weaponize intimacy every time you want control, and then act confused when he finally snaps. That moment did not just happen. You created it. Every dismissal.
Oh, we have got 40 more women are going to law school, medical school, and dental school.
You could send one message to Americans 50 years in the future. What would it be? Don't send your sons to finish what politicians start.
Amount of times I've been on dates with white men and they've asked me if I've dated black men.
Men online furious.
You should hire the divas. Right. Now, by the way, if you read any management text, it says don't hire the divas because they're nothing but a pain in the ass. By the way, they are. But the people who are the divas who believe, right, are the ones that will drive the culture of excellence, and they'll drive you to that excellence. Steve Jobs was a diva. I worked with Bill Joy, who was my colleague for many years. He's an example of a diva. And I mean this in the most flattering way. They expect a lot. They drive people hard. They're controversial, and they care passionately. Right? If you find those people, you're probably going to work for one. So be nice to them. You should hire the divas.
Okay, love of the.
Don't give me that shit about it's a drug. It ain't no mother drug. I done the research. It's just a plant. It just grows like that. And if you should happen to set it on fire, there are some effects. But that's not the same as drugs. Drugs, you got to do shit to it chemically. You got to add baking soda, water, stir it up. I don't know the recipe. I'm just saying. Well, why the is it legal? I don't know. Aspirin is perfectly legal. But if you take okay. Don't give me that shit about it's a drug. It ain't no mother drug. I done the research. It's just a plant. It just grows like that. And if you should happen to set it on fire, there are some effects. But that's not the same as drugs. Drugs, you got to do shit to it chemically. You got to add baking soda, water, stir it up. I don't know the recipe. I'm just saying. Well, why the is it legal? I don't know. Aspirin is perfectly legal. But if you take 13 of them mother, it'll be your last headache. Long as you've been living, you ain't never heard of a mother overdose on marijuana. You might have thought that nigga was dead. He ain't dead. He gonna wake up in 30 minutes, hungry enough to eat up everything in your house. That's the side effects. Hungry, happy, sleeping. That's it.
It's a group of women around the whole world and nobody ever talks about. And they keep everything going. And they don't never get no credit. Where's all the fellas in here with an ugly woman make some noise? Some people saw their whole marriage go before their eyes. Can I trust in you? Everybody in here with somebody ugly know better. They just staring at me like this. Truth is, I'm telling you, you can do whatever you want to do, but there's still consequences. Hollywood is finding that out right now. There's a drug problem in Hollywood. They can't even tell you about it. But y'all know I'll tell. Here's the truth, won't nobody say. That mother Ozempic is whooping Hollywood's ass. Do you hear me? They say Oprah took so much that Gail lost 12 pounds. Do you understand what I said? People are shitting themselves to death. They lied us all together. They told all of us in here, there's a chicken wing shortage. Look at people of all races and religions, genders and creeds, all agreeing. They damn sure did say that. And no matter how much we all love chicken, we didn't riot in the streets. We didn't burn burger places down. But liars always leave a clue. Did you notice they did not say it was a shortage of chickens? I'm gonna say something to you that sounds like a mother made it up. And it's really in the news. The FBI
Hello. It's going okay. Mm. 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 my live, I cannot receive gifts when I live stream. I would like to submit a ticket. Currently, I am unable to receive gifts during my lives. I did not realize that you are not allowed to sleep when you live stream. My followers wanted to watch as I slept.
Drug, it ain't no mother drug.
Two women have been found. Two women have been banned from all pubs, bars, nightclubs, and hotels in England and Wales after trashing a hotel and attacking staff. According to 19-year-olds, Carol McKeown and Larissa Solonskaya abused workers and threatened.
Learn that everything is better with women. You are telling me I'm the good.
Trump says he's no Winston Churchill. Well, in this respect, I'm very happy that he's no Winston Churchill, because Winston Churchill did intervene in Iran, and we are living with the consequences of that today. So Churchill and his counterparts in the US launched a coup against the democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh, in 1953, because he was nationalizing the oil industry. He said, this oil belongs to Iran, it shouldn't be all captured by the Anglo-Iranian oil company and siphoned out of our country and the wealth.
You think that you're observing your thoughts and you're watching them and analyzing them and trying to understand?
All of a sudden, I feel like I know better than everyone else.
That's because anytime someone walks through a cloud of vape smoke, a millennial is born. Remember, Peter, never walking.
Why is it that so much of Netflix content for children promotes a transgender ideology? Almost half of your content for children, I'm talking about minor children now, I'm not talking about teenagers, minor children, promotes a transgender ideology agenda. I was just looking at the data here.
The highest form of vibrational frequency.
Well, we're watching it.
Greetings from Crockers.
Are you looking to buy a boyfriend but can't afford the perfect guy? We're having a huge sale on boyfriends who are kind but depressed. These boyfriends will be supportive, but in a way that makes you feel weirdly guilty.
I'm so proud of you for going for a run. I hate my body.
3 out of 10 women agree that having this type of boyfriend is marginally better than being alone. Get your mom off your back and buy the kind but depressed boyfriend today.
God, I'm so tired.
They all must go. Please, take them. Are you looking to buy a boyfriend but can't afford the perfect guy? We're having a huge... Are you looking to buy a boyfriend but can't afford the perfect guy? We're having... Are you looking to buy a boyfriend but can't afford the perfect guy? We're having a huge sale on boyfriends who are kind but depressed. These boyfriends will be supportive, but in a way that makes you feel weirdly guilty. 3 out of 10.
unfortunately, to these cabinet members. I said, this is the equivalent of Franklin Roosevelt responding to Pearl Harbor by invading Mexico.
January 2002, the ritual State of the Union address.
Chairman Hamid Karzai.
The Afghanistan campaign had been a great success, and the new President Hamid Karzai was guest of honor. Bush took the opportunity to designate a new enemy, Iraq.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world by seeking weapons of mass destruction.
Bush used the term weapons of mass destruction for the first time. The war of words had begun, and so had the countdown to the real hostilities.
Giving them the means.
I felt I was inside a beast. I felt I was inside a government, a machine that was about to make a terrible mistake that would really hurt the world.
A race for war was underway, aided by America's tireless ally and accomplice, Great Britain. Jack Straw was Tony Blair's foreign secretary.
The idea that something might happen over Iraq came up in early 2002, and certainly by February, March, there was quite a lot of discussion in Washington, a discussion between us in Washington.
In the months following the terrorist attacks on New York, the British government learned that military action against Iraq was in preparation. In this document from December 2001, Blair accepts that the invasion is a fait accompli. The justification, the document points out, could be constructed around weapons of mass destruction, though it would be threadbare. Saying no to America was never considered an option, even though from the outset Tony Blair made it clear that he would do nothing without the backing of the United Nations.
And so I started to look for the evidence that politicians were using when they were making claims about Iraq. And it was in that gap between the political statement and the evidence that they were drawing upon that I found a source of curiosity, a wonder of why there was this mismatch between the evidence and the rhetoric.
In a message addressed to Blair before his visit to America, Jack Straw drew his attention to the fact that there was no direct link between Iraq and Al-Qaeda. But when Prime Minister Blair visited the Bush Ranch, officially for a consultation between two heads of state, he was, in fact, picking up his battle orders. That is the way this special relationship works.
There's a real neurosis inside the British system, not to separate ourselves from the United States, but it does mean the starting point is alliance with the US, and where there are disagreements, insofar as it's possible, you keep them within the family.
In this document from the Prime Minister's office, Tony Blair enjoins one of his advisors to reorder government narrative in order to help American propaganda.
The intelligence assessments that were not made public until a few years after the invasion had actually occurred are filled with caveats. They're filled with statements of what they don't actually know.
The subtlety of intelligence you can't really convey to a public, and I felt that it was a mistake for us to seek to rely on intelligence.
Good morning. Morning after September 11th.
A parliamentary inquiry was to discover only much later that on several occasions Tony Blair tried to force the hand of his Attorney General, Lord Goldsmith, to make him declare an invasion legal. This document, in which Goldsmith refuses yet again to give in to the Prime Minister's demands, bears a furious annotation in the margin. I just don't understand this. Philip Sands, an international lawyer, has written a book on the subject of Tony Blair's legal manipulations.
He stood up and he told the British people that there was evidence and intelligence that Saddam's regime had weapons of mass destruction. Not true. The second misrepresentation was that the Attorney General had told him that the use of force was unequivocally legal. Not true. So it gets pretty serious when a Prime Minister misleads his own public in relation to intelligence and legal advice.
Lord Goldsmith held his ground until the trip to America, where he met his American counterparts, the same men who a few days earlier had authorized the use of torture by the American army. On his return to England, Goldsmith finally gave in to Blair's demands. To sell the idea of war, Blair stepped up the number of misleading shock declarations to the press, as we see from this headline in one of Britain's most popular papers. Nothing works quite like fear. In Afghanistan, the Taliban regime crumbled in a matter of weeks. But that did not mean that the war was over. Osama bin Laden was still on the loose, and American soldiers were dying every day. In the United States, patriotism is always unquestioned. Fertile soil for the White House in its effort to win the hearts and minds of the American nation and gain their support for a new war.
What was different about this war, as far as propaganda was concerned, was the people in the White House, especially with a good political sense, realized that a war of aggression was so contrary to American tradition that a long sales campaign would be needed to muster the support for it.
Andrew Card, Bush's chief of staff, started a vigorous media offensive. He had come to politics from marketing at General Motors. He knew you don't launch a new product in August, and with the support of senior officials, prepared the opening of the campaign for the anniversary of 9/11. The message was unstated, but the propaganda perfect. And it was Dick Cheney who would first give it voice.
9/11 and its aftermath awakened this nation to danger, to the true ambitions of the global terror network. Simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us.
On September 11, the president himself addressed the nation.
And we will not allow any terrorist or tyrant to threaten civilization with weapons of mass murder.
The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Mr. George W. Bush, President of the United States of America.
On the following day, September 12th, he spoke to the whole world.
Mr. Secretary General, Mr. President, distinguished delegates.
N'oubliez pas, intervention de George Bush à l'Assemblée générale des Nations Unies à la rentrée 2002. Là, ils nous piègent tous. On s'attend à ce qu'ils disent, écoutez, les Nations Unies, vous êtes très sympathiques, mais nous, on est décidé à aller en guerre, donc on ira quoi qu'il arrive. Il dit pas ça.
But the purposes of the United States should not be doubted. The Security Council resolutions will be enforced.
Il chante les louanges des Nations Unies.
My nation will work with the UN Security Council to meet our common challenge.
Il explique qu'il va passer par les Nations Unies pour obtenir l'aval en droit d'une intervention militaire en Irak. Alors bien sûr que pour George Bush, tout ça était un pur calcul et une façon de légitimer une action qui de toute façon était prévue longtemps à l'avance. Il voulait juste l'estampiller, labelliser Nations Unies.
Saddam Hussein's regime is a grave and gathering danger. To suggest otherwise is to hope against the evidence in deploying the most terrible weapons.
Not content with tricking the UN and its frontline members of the Security Council, Bush directly threatened Iraq.
And if an emboldened regime were to supply these weapons to terrorist allies, then the attacks of September the 11th would be a prelude to far greater horrors.
The British had already decided which side they were on. It was up to France to become the symbol of resistance in the new debate. And American public opinion was about to become the object of new coercion.
So they began preparing public opinion, equating Iraq with Afghanistan. They want the public to see it all of a piece.
As Mr. Wolfowitz conceded in an unguarded comment, that the weapons issue was just something that people in government could agree on as a rationale for the war.
A kind of game of mirrors was put in place, repeatedly telling and showing Americans that invasion was a necessity.
There is no more sacred decision a president and his cabinet will take than sending soldiers into war to kill and to die in your country's name. So the first thought that comes to mind is not they're lying. They had made their case very skillfully in their propaganda, in selling the war to the American people. And the first level of that sales package, if you will, was the nuclear threat.
The evidence indicates that Iraq is reconstituting its nuclear weapons program. Saddam Hussein has held numerous meetings with Iraqi nuclear scientists, a group he calls his nuclear mujahideen, his nuclear holy warriors.
And the old threat of nuclear attack was wheeled out for the purpose.
The problem here is that there will always be some uncertainty about how quickly he can acquire a nuclear weapon. But we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud.
Facing clear evidence of peril, we cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
Does he have nuclear weapons? Is there a smoking gun here?
Yeah, the smoking gun is an interesting phrase.
And that certainly gets the public's attention, doesn't it?
The words bearing the essential themes were repeated again and again. The orchestration was varied, but the melody simple and effective.
Iraq is going to cooperate.
This is about the disarmament of Iraq, not about weapons inspectors hunting and pecking all over the country.
Time is running out, and we just can't keep hunting and pecking.
They were very well organized, they were very articulate, and they were unrelenting. He was constant.
As the president has said, the one option that we do not have is to do nothing.
The president has, I think, put it exactly right. He has said that the one choice we don't have is to do nothing.
As the president has said, and as Prime Minister Blair said yesterday, doing nothing is no longer an option.
But more than repetition was needed to convince the public. There were other vital ingredients: confusion and doubt.
We know of certain knowledge that we know these things. We know them. We also know there's a category of things we don't know. And then we don't even know a category of things that we don't know.
The White House also played a more subtle game. False information was leaked to distinguished journalists. In September, Judith Miller, a top reporter for the New York Times, published a scoop. Iraq was procuring metal tubing for the enrichment of uranium. The source of the leak, a member of the White House team who had chosen the New York Times because of its reliability.
And then, very quickly, they would send their spokesman, their trained and dedicated spokesman, out to again flood the screens, the radio, with saying, well, as this newspaper said just the other day.
This is, and I want to attribute the Times, and I'm going to talk about obviously specific intelligence sources, but reporting just this morning that he is still trying to acquire, for example, some of the specialized aluminum tubing one needs to develop centrifuges that would give you an enrichment capability.
In the abstract, this was the thing of beauty of public relations and manipulation of public opinion.
No, what the defector al-Qarari, a former brigadier general in the Iraqi intelligence service, told me is that these guys, there are 1,200 in all.
These informers did not stop at feeding incorrect information to the media. They also produced false witnesses, so-called deserters from Saddam's army.
The defector is telling Moussawi that in order to evade the UN inspectors, Saddam Hussein put his...
They fostered the belief that the Iraqi dictator possessed weapons of mass destruction, that he was financing terrorist networks, and was seeking to produce a nuclear arsenal. Everyone, or almost, was taken in.
Iraq's ruthless intelligence service, the Mukhabarat.
No matter how you framed it, it was going to be perceived you saying the President of the United States is not telling the truth, i.e., we hate to use lying as a word. It's one of those words that journalists are very reluctant. But when you say the President's not telling the truth, you're saying your President is a liar. Your Vice President's a liar. Your Secretary of State, or Mr. Journalist. Who the hell are you to question this?
How can you not say the president is lying if you know the president is lying?
John Walcott was chief editor of Knight Ridder, one of the only Washington press groups that dared counter the official version of the facts.
Here's where it comes down now, as I look back. If you take the metro from here, we're in downtown Washington, and if you take it to the Pentagon, where the Department of Defense is based, it comes out of the ground briefly at Arlington National Cemetery. And you look out of the window of that train and you see row upon row of white crosses. Some that are there from Iraq, some thousands. And I can look out at those crosses from the train and say, I tried. I did my best before you were sent to war to ask whether or not the cause was truthful. We got a lot of pushback from people quite high up in the administration who accused us of, at one point in one fairly heated conversation, of treason. You know, if you contradict what the president or the vice president or the Defense Department is saying, that somehow is treasonous. And they tried to play that card. And they played the access card.
The popular media preferred the official version, rarely contradicted or verified, to what was written on the slogans carried at the anti-war demonstrations.
What we like to talk in journalism is journalistic courage. We probably talk too much about it and don't do enough of it. But yes, it takes guts. It takes courage to say, I don't care what the herd is doing. I have questions about this.
Almost 70% of the American people thought Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11 before we attacked Iraq. I mean, it was masterful propaganda. Okay.
After September 11, the government knew that above all else, the public had to be reassured. The people would not oppose a president once he was at war, but to go into Iraq, a vote of Congress was needed, and to win it, they would need more than a few leaks to the press. Vice President Dick Cheney decided to make a personal visit to the CIA to put pressure on agency analysts. He needed the information they held to be of use to him.
Cheney hated the CIA. They wouldn't bend on ties between Iraq and Al-Qaeda. They resisted for too long this notion of weapons of mass destruction, and he was always suspicious that they were trying to get him.
Cheney did not trust George Tenet, the head of what is the largest intelligence service in the world. But Tenet, a renegade from the Clinton administration, was very careful to tell his bosses what they wanted to hear.
That doesn't work, because if you size up your director as a guy who's willing to smell the prevailing winds, and adjust his briefings accordingly, then how are you going to be completely free to tell the president or the vice president, secretary of state, well, that's not the way it is, sir?
For the first time in the history of the United States, a vice president rifled through CIA files to see what could be of use to him.
And I'm so interested that I, powerful vice president, I'm going to come out and make visits to your place. That shows you how important this is to me. That was the message. And analysts, and this gets more into the question of subtleties of influence. Analysts crave FaceTime with someone as powerful as the vice president. I mean, I talked to one or two of the people from the Counterterror Center who was involved in some of these meetings. Oh, we had all this time with Dick Cheney, the vice president. They went fine as far as they were concerned.
The sacred wall that until now had assured the independence of intelligence communication was breached. Dick Cheney had got what he came for. Following his much contested report in which Iraq was identified as an immediate threat to the security of the US, Congress nonetheless authorized the president to go to war.
Nays are 133. The joint resolution is passed without objection.
The vote had been a success, but government infighting intensified. Cheney and Rumsfeld on one side, Powell and Tenet on the other. No one trusted anyone, and each interfered in the other's affairs.
It was so bad by that time that people were referring to the vice president's office as the Gestapo, the Nazis. People were referring to Rumsfeld and the alliance between Rumsfeld and Cheney as the deadly duo, the devil's duo.
To crown it all, on November 8, 2002, in New York, the UN Security Council once more slowed the White House down. Hands were raised in a unanimous vote for Resolution 1441.
If Iraq's defiance continues, however, the Security Council must face its responsibilities.
It was a defeat for the United States. War seemed to have been averted, and it was back to diplomacy. For Dick Cheney, it was vital to retaliate. His bureau had been exploring new avenues for several months.
These reports were floating around the intelligence community, probably from the end of 2001, a month or two after 9/11.
This time, the CIA presented Dick Cheney's office with some contracts. They came from Europe and seemed to prove that Iraq had purchased several tons of uranium from Niger. CIA specialist on nuclear affairs Valerie Plame Wilson was given the job of checking the veracity of the documents.
If the White House calls and it's in the very essence of the CIA to respond to senior policymakers.
However, these documents had immediately aroused the suspicions of world specialists.
These were fabricated documents that came out of the Italian service, SISMI, but they were bought by SISMI from a notorious fabricator who had been selling so-called secrets and documents to various European countries, including the French.
The same documents appeared on the desks of the most senior state officials in France. The Paris government was far from convinced.
Je dis très clairement qu'on a voulu faire croire aux autorités politiques françaises, par tous les moyens, y compris la manipulation de documents officiels, qu'il y avait réellement des armes de destruction massive en Irak. Et je peux témoigner que j'ai reçu dans mon bureau, de la part de services étrangers alliés, des documents établissant l'existence d'armes de destruction massive en Irak qui étaient des faux. Les personnes qui m'ont fourni ces documents ne pouvaient pas ignorer que c'était des faux.
The CIA decided to send Valerie's husband, Joe Wilson, a top specialist on Africa, to investigate in Niger.
My value added was I had a sense of what was going on the ground, and I had the contacts on the ground. I knew who to go talk to.
Joe Wilson tried to find out more about these supposed sales.
I saw the former prime minister. I saw the former minister of mines. I saw a number of other officials. It would have represented I think something in the order of a 40% increase in the production at that time, which would have meant 40% more trucks, 40% more barrels. It would have been very difficult, I think, to hide that from anybody.
He returned empty-handed, made a report of his trip to the CIA, and went back to his job. A few weeks later, President Bush affirmed the sale had taken place in his State of the Union address.
The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
These 16 words constituted a vulgar lie, but the White House was beyond caring. They were too busy implicating their allies in the war.
Other methods used in the torture chambers of Iraq. International human rights groups.
In February, while military preparations were at their most intense, the diplomatic situation was once more in deadlock. Bush realized that despite all his efforts, he was not convincing the world. He had to go for bust. But how?
I know what we'll do. There's only one of us that has any credibility left, and that's Colin. Yeah, let me get Colin in. Colin, come on in here.
To tip international opinion in his favor, Bush knew that he needed the most respected member of his clan. National hero Colin Powell would put his moral and political credibility on the line in a last-ditch attempt to bring the United Nations on board. He would explain to the world why America wanted war at all costs. Powell wrote his speech with the help of Director of the CIA, George Tenet. The two men shut themselves away for 5 days and 5 nights. Larry Wilkerson was with them.
Secretary Powell had told me I want at least 3 or 4 sources, each independently corroborating the other, for every major statement I'm going to make. And what he meant by that, of course, was he wanted human intelligence, he wanted materials intelligence, he wanted satellite intelligence, photo reconnaissance intelligence. He wanted some form of intelligence that, independent of this one, corroborated this one.
But during those long nights, they realized that Tenet had nothing new to offer. They'd have to make do with what they'd got.
But I quickly found out that what George meant by checking sources was him. He was speaking as the DCI for the entire intelligence community. And so every time we had a question about a source, it was take my word. It was, yeah, this is a good source. It was, yes, this is okay.
Colin Powell became angry when Tenet asked him to take his word for it.
I want a photo of this damn thing. I mean, he told the DCI that. I don't want to draw sketches of a biological laboratory. I want a photograph. If it's a rail car, get me a photograph. If it's a truck, I want a photograph. And, you know, George Tenet couldn't produce those things. If you're the Secretary of State, you've got to take the DCI's word for it at some point.
Late on the 5th night, in the upper floors of the United Nations building, as he was rehearsing the speech for the last time, Powell suddenly paused.
And he turned to Mr. Tenet and he said, you stand by everything I just said. You stand by everything I just said. Yes, I stand by. And Powell said, well, good, because you're going to be with me tomorrow. You're going to be in camera. You're going to be with me. And that's very unusual for the director of the CIA to be on television. And you look at that presentation, and he's right over Powell's shoulder. He's sitting right behind him.
The Iraqis are moving not just documents and hard drives, but weapons of mass destruction to keep them from being found.
In the hallowed hall of the United Nations, the show could begin. Powell politely reminded gathered members that some of the details would be hard to understand.
The photos that I am about to show you are sometimes hard for the average person to interpret. Hard for me.
He presented Iraq as a satanic power and accused Saddam of converting the most serious sicknesses on the planet into weapons of war.
Causing diseases such as gas gangrene, plague, typhus, tetanus, cholera, camelpox, and hemorrhagic fever. Second, when Iraq finally admitted having these weapons in 1995, the quantities were vast. Less than a teaspoon of dry anthrax, a little bit about this amount. This is just about the amount of
Like a perfect traveling salesman in the lying trade, Powell brought all the visual aids required, continuing his performance with a presentation of hand-painted mobile biological laboratories produced by the CIA, thanks to the evidence of an Iraqi taxi driver whom Tenet had considered unreliable.
highly detailed and extremely accurate.
No laboratory, mobile or otherwise, would ever be discovered.
This video of an Iraqi test flight shows an Iraqi F-1 Mirage jet aircraft. Note the spray coming from beneath the Mirage. That is 2,000 liters of simulated anthrax that a jet is spraying. In
The
1995,
Mirage F-1 in this footage had been destroyed years earlier, in 1991.
saw a cargo truck.
The sites that were claimed to be stocking chemical weapons were visited by UN inspectors during the following days and were found empty.
Facility on November
In a speech lasting 1 hour, Powell had destroyed a reputation built over a lifetime.
in this council chamber, debating resolution 1441 last fall.
On March 19, 2003, hostilities could begin. Let us look at the last piece of manipulation in this story. As the Americans entered Baghdad, this footage was shown again and again.
As they rolled into Baghdad, the American troops were cheered by hundreds of Iraqis gathering in the streets. In the city center, newly liberated Iraqis toppled a huge statue of Saddam Hussein.
The sequence was sold by the media as symbolizing the end of the war, though it had only just begun.
And terror.
But supposing we look more closely at the Iraqis first of all. This wide shot, filmed earlier in the day, shows that there were few of them, and that they were vainly trying to knock down the statue with sledgehammers. Then, on the left of the picture, we see the arrival of the American Tank Regiment. Peter Mass was in Baghdad for the New York Times.
The commander of this battalion, who I was with at the time, he saw what was going on, and he knew that the press was broadcasting all of this live. And he saw that the Iraqis were trying to take down the statue with the rope, and they had failed.
So the American general decided to give history a nudge.
Imagery can be attacked. You know, he called his commander. The commander said, "Okay, just be sure that nobody gets killed when you take it down."
The tank tugged, the statue crashed to the ground, and the world was overjoyed. It was a day on which everyone needed some good news.
And I think what the cameras didn't pick up was, even while that was going on at the square, only a few blocks away, there were buildings that had been set on fire and people were walking off with office furniture and things like that. So just very, very close to where that scene of jubilation was, the chaos was already starting to take over the city.
It was a day that would also be remembered as a victory for the Iraqi people, thanks to American intervention.
We create images that we want to believe in, and then we believe them. We create the events that confirm our desires, that confirm our prejudices.
The fallen statue was to help the American president seal his victory. But propaganda needs a receptive public, and as the weeks passed, no weapons of mass destruction could be found. This time, no manipulation could come to the aid of the Bush administration. The dejection that hung over Iraq now spread to Washington.
And former U.S. ambassador to the West African country of Gabon, Joseph Wilson, says yes. He's disclosed publicly for the first
Joe
time
Wilson knew that the government had used his Niger visit to manipulate public opinion. He organized a media-type response.
Let's put this in
So on Sunday morning of the 6th, Dick Cheney awakened. He's got Joe Wilson in the Washington Post. He's got Joe Wilson in the New York Times. He's got Joe Wilson on Meet the Press. What they were concerned about was that this was an orchestrated pushback by the CIA, because they were beginning to blame the CIA for not having come up with proof of the existence of the WMD.
To take revenge on Wilson, the vice president's office threw his wife's name to the press.
One of the nation's most carefully guarded secrets, the identity of a covert CIA agent, Valerie Plame Wilson.
Years later, a judicial inquiry condemned Cheney's chief of staff to a suspended prison sentence for having revealed the identity of an American secret agent.
I never dawned on it, because it doesn't happen, that their tactic would be to betray the identity of a covert CIA officer, or even to bring a family member into the public square to administer this beatdown, basically, this attack.
So it felt, as I have said, it felt a little bit like falling down Alice's rabbit hole. All your touchstones, everything that you've known is gone. It's wiped away.
The spy, betrayed by her own people, was left with the nightmare of Alice in Wonderland and with a shattered career.
At the end of the day, the person who really decided to do this war was George Bush. The person who really wanted to do this war was George Bush. Now, maybe he came to that conclusion by having been manipulated, but it wasn't Dick Cheney, and it wasn't Don Rumsfeld, and it wasn't Paul Wolfowitz. At the end of the day, he wanted to do this, and he's the reason it happened.
For Iraq, the result was a 10-year war and hundreds of thousands of deaths. For George Bush, who had forever associated manipulation and military invasion with the history of his country, there was only one punishment: re-election in 2004.
Reputation of the national carrier has taken a battering.
This is very rare. For an airplane to disappear is not normal.
So many wanted answers when there were none.
March 8th, 2014. 239 souls board Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, expecting a routine journey through the night sky. But just 40 minutes after takeoff, the aircraft suddenly drops off the radar, vanishing without a trace.
4 weeks on from the plane mysteriously disappearing, time is running out.
In the 4 years following the disappearance, multiple searches, conspiracies, investigations, and allegations took over the world. But the full story remained elusive.
There's a reference number on this part of the airplane.
This plane was never meant to be found.
A decade on, and the question remains: where is flight MH370? Retrace the mysterious timeline of events as we recount those moments, minute by minute. Flight MH370's satellite data unit logs onto the Inmarsat satellite communication network. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah and First Officer Tariq Abdul Hamid sign in for duty around an hour prior. After the 12 crew members and 227 passengers board the aircraft, Air Traffic Control gives Flight 370 clearance to push back from the gate.
Flight 370 is set to Beijing via Pibos after departure 6,000 feet to 157. Beijing departure 6,000 feet to 157. Malaysia 370, thank you. Malaysia 370, welcome, I want to cover the ground.
Taxi to Repel Alpha 11, runway 2 right via standard route for a short power call. Alpha 11, standard route, on shutdown, Malaysia 370.
ATC gives flight 370 clearance to take off.
370, C to right of takeoff. Nice. Thanks for the right, Malaysia 37, enjoy.
Flight 370 successfully takes off from runway 32R at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Air traffic control then instructs the pilot to climb to flight level 180, approximately 18,000 feet, and proceed directly to waypoint Igari. Flight 370 is transferred from the airport's air traffic control to Lumpur Radar ATC, based at the Kuala Lumpur Area Control Center, KLACC. ATC then gives clearance to climb to flight level 250, approximately 25,000 feet.
Malaysia 370, Lumpur Radar, good morning, climb back to 250. Thank you, level 250, Malaysia 370.
ATC gives flight 370 clearance to climb to flight level 350, approximately 35,000 feet.
Malaysia 370, climb flight level 350. Level 350, Malaysia 370.
Captain Zahari informs air traffic control that the aircraft has reached flight level 350. The final data transmission from Flight 370 is made using the ACARS protocol. In the next hour, the satellite communication link is lost. It is unknown when exactly this occurs.
370, maintaining level 350. Malaysia 370.
Moments later, the captain confirms to air traffic control that the plane is flying at flight level 350. As the crew is instructed to contact Ho Chi Minh ACC after the aircraft passes waypoint Igari, Captain Zahari confirms this.
Malaysia 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120, level 9, that's right. Malaysia 370.
This would be the final voice contact with Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Less than 2 minutes after the final radio communication between ATC and the aircraft, Flight 370 vanishes from radar in Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh and Bangkok, indicating the 777's transponder is no longer functioning. HCM-ACC requests another aircraft to make verbal contact with Flight 370. Only radio static is heard in reply. The ACARS data transmission, expected every half an hour, is not received. After almost 20 minutes of no contact, HCM-ACC reaches out to Kuala Lumpur to inquire about MH370's whereabouts. Both ground stations report losing the aircraft on radar, with its last known position being near waypoint Baitod. Despite the transponder being inactive, Malaysian military radar continues to track the aircraft, which almost immediately begins a left turn and starts traveling in a southwesterly direction. Ho Chi Minh ACC contacts KLACC and informs them that radar contact with Flight 370 was established near Igari, but lost near Baitod, and that verbal contact was never established. It is believed that at some point during the plane's return over Malaysia and past Penang, the SATCOM link was severed. Flight 370 reaches the southern end of Penang Island. First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid's cell phone registers with a cell tower below, indicating how low the plane must be flying at this point. Flight 370 then turns back on itself, this time pointing northwest, heading along the Strait of Malacca. HCM-ACC informs KL-ACC there is still no contact with Flight 370, despite attempts on many frequencies and aircraft in the vicinity. Malaysia Airlines Dispatch Center sends a message to the cockpit instructing pilots to contact Vietnam ATC. There is still no response. A ground-to-aircraft ACARS data request, transmitted from the ground station multiple times in the following 2 minutes, is not acknowledged by the aircraft satellite data unit. KLACC contacts HCM-ACC, relaying information from Malaysia Airlines Operations Center that Flight 370 is in Cambodian airspace. Malaysia Airlines Operations Center confirms to KLACC that it is able to exchange signals with Flight 370, which is in Cambodian airspace. KLACC contacts HCM-ACC, asking them whether Flight 370 was supposed to enter Cambodian airspace. HCM-ACC replies that Flight 370's planned route did not take it into Cambodian airspace and that they had checked. Cambodia had no information about or contact with the aircraft. The last primary radar contact is made by the Malaysian military, 200 nautical miles northwest of Penang. A log-on request, known as a handshake, is sent by the aircraft on its satellite communication link to the Inmarsat satellite communications network. The link is re-established after being lost for between 22 and 68 minutes, a significant indication of the aircraft's activity. Malaysia Airlines Operations Center informs KLACC that Flight 370 is in a normal condition based on signals from the aircraft located above northern Vietnam. KLACC relays this information to HCM-ACC. ground-to-aircraft telephone call via the aircraft satellite link goes unanswered. Malaysia Airlines Operations Center informs KLACC that position information was based on flight projection and is not reliable for aircraft tracking. In the following hours, Kuala Lumpur and Ho Chi Minh area control centers query Chinese air traffic control. An hourly automated handshake is made between the aircraft and the Inmarsat satellite communication network. Another hourly handshake between Flight 370 and the Inmarsat communication network is made. Singapore ACC is queried for information about Flight 370. No communication is made. The hourly log-on request is made again between the aircraft and Inmarsat. It is important to remember that these SATCOM signals retain no information about location or altitude and exist solely to ensure the receiving terminal is still online. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 misses its scheduled arrival at Beijing Capital International Airport. The Kuala Lumpur Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center is activated. Once again, the automated handshake is made between the aircraft and the Inmarsat satellite communication network. Another attempt at a ground-to-aircraft telephone call is placed by Malaysia Airlines via the aircraft satellite link. This again goes unanswered. Malaysia Airlines issues an official press statement announcing that Flight 370 is missing. The last successful automated hourly handshake is made with the Inmarsat satellite communication network. The aircraft sends a log-on request to the satellite. Investigators believe this follows a power failure between the time the engine is stopping due to fuel exhaustion and the emergency power generator starting. Following a response from the ground station, the aircraft replies with a log-on acknowledgement message. This is the final transmission received from Flight 370. The aircraft does not respond to the hourly automated handshake attempt. All communications with Flight 370 come to an end. What would come next was a decade of mystery, speculation, and conspiracy. And the biggest and most expensive search in aviation history.
This hour, a desperate search is underway for MH Flight 370, which departed Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. local time and was due to land in Beijing at 6:30 a.m. Air traffic control lost contact with the plane about 2 hours after takeoff. Whether the disappearance is due to mechanical problems, pilot error, or even terrorism is yet to be determined.
Immediately after MH370 is declared missing, Vietnamese rescue planes spot large oil slicks in the Gulf of Thailand near Tho Chu Island. Initial concerns arise, but the slicks are soon identified as coming from a nearby ship, not the missing plane. As military radar data reveals more about the plane's position, the search, initially led by Malaysia and focused between the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea, quickly escalates into a multinational rescue operation. The operation involves 22 military aircraft and 19 ships from China, Australia, Malaysia, and Japan, with additional support from New Zealand, the USA, South Korea, and the UK. The search expands to cover the Strait of Malacca, the Andaman Sea, and the Bay of Bengal. Inmarsat analysts calculate the distance between MH370 and the satellite by measuring the time it took for the signal to be sent to the aircraft, replied to, and received back. This breakthrough allows investigators to map out 7 rings, representing potential positions of the aircraft at the time of each hourly handshake. By the morning of March 11th, Inmarsat identifies 2 potential flight paths, referred to as arcs, and shares this critical information with Malaysian investigators, marking a significant breakthrough in the search. After analysis shows the plane turned south toward the Indian Ocean, Malaysia requests Australia to take over the search operations, as the area falls within its search and rescue region. The search area spans approximately 600,000 square kilometres. The Australian Maritime Safety Authority, supported by the Australian Defence Force, coordinates a surface search by aircraft and vessels in the Indian Ocean. At 10 p.m. local time, Prime Minister Najib Razak announces at a press conference that flight MH370 is presumed to have gone down in the southern Indian Ocean, with no survivors.
Based on new satellite communication, we can say with a high degree of certainty that the aircraft communications addressing and reporting system, or ACAS, was disabled just before the aircraft reached the east coast of Peninsula Malaysia. It then flew in a westerly direction back over Peninsula Malaysia before turning northwest. Up until the point at which it left military primary radar coverage, these movements are consistent with deliberate action by someone on the day. According to the new data, the last confirmed communication between the plane and the satellite was at 8:11 a.m. Malaysian time on Saturday, 8th of March, despite media reports that the plane was hijacked. I wish to be very clear. We are still investigating all possibilities as to what caused MH370 to deviate from its original flight path.
The search area is now focused on the southern part of the Indian Ocean. The northern search corridor northwest of Malaysia, as well as the northern half of the southern search corridor between Indonesia and Australia, are definitively ruled out. Around 200 relatives of flight MH370's passengers march in protest outside the Malaysian embassy in Beijing, a rare event in China. The grieving relatives chant liars and tell the truth, return our relatives. China demands Malaysia hand over the satellite data that led them to conclude flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean with no survivors. China also sends a special envoy to Malaysia. The Australian Navy's disaster relief vessel, ADV Ocean Shield, and the Royal Navy survey ship, HMS Echo, shift the search effort.
Hello? How's it going? Cheers. Some what? A Dan? What's that? Well, I don't know if I work it out, mate. Alright, later, yeah. I just hear some charges.
efforts underwater. They focus on detecting acoustic signals, or pings, from the missing aircraft's black box in hopes of locating Flight 370's flight recorders. Chinese search ships, using handheld equipment, eventually detect several pings. In response, ADB Ocean Shield is deployed, equipped with a towed pinger locator, to narrow down the source of the signals and help pinpoint the location of the pings. While the seafloor sonar survey continues, the surface search concludes. The search in Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean has lasted 52 days. More than 4.5 million square kilometers of ocean surface has been searched. In the southern Indian Ocean, 29 aircraft from 7 countries conducted 334 search flights, and 14 ships from multiple countries also joined the effort. A bathymetric survey of the ocean floor is conducted to map its contours and depth, helping to determine which equipment is suitable for the search operations. The survey better enables the safer operations and detection capabilities of the seafloor sonar equipment for the next phase of the search. The seafloor sonar survey concludes having scanned over 150,000 square kilometers at depths of 3,000 to 5,000 meters. No objects related to Flight 370 are found. The head of Malaysia's government committee handling the needs of Flight 370's families announces interim compensation of $50,000 per missing passenger. Over the following 8 months, multiple new search areas are outlined and surveyed. In accordance with the Chicago Convention, the Malaysian government officially declares Flight 370's disappearance as an accident with no survivors. On the first anniversary of the disappearance, Malaysia's Ministry of Transport releases an interim report, focusing on factual information rather than the analysis of causes. One significant issue, not previously revealed to the public, is that the battery in the underwater locator beacon attached to the flight data recorder had expired in December 2012, potentially impairing its performance. More than a year and a half after the initial disappearance, multiple shipwrecks and obscure geological formations had raised suspicions amongst the 4.6 million square kilometers of ocean that were searched. Yet no indication of MH370 was found, until the first piece of the puzzle washes up on a small island in the Western Indian Ocean 2 months later.
Hello.
Here, they still can't pinpoint the exact coordinates of the plane, so the search at sea will continue.
The journalist in La Réunion just sent us a picture just to investigate if it could shoot with an aircraft, with a piece of an aircraft. So with my team, we just looked at hundreds and thousands of pictures. We just tried to figure out which plane it could belong to. We found only one match. it was the flaperon of a Boeing 777. And not only the shape match, but also all the connection and all the holes that are very specific for this kind of pieces of plane.
In July 2015, a piece of aircraft debris and a suitcase washes ashore on a beach on Reunion Island, located in the western Indian Ocean, about 4,000 kilometers west of the current underwater search area. The debris is found to be an aircraft wing flaperon and is transported to Toulouse, France, where it is examined by the BEA, the Civil Aviation Accident Investigation Agency.
Also saw that there's a reference number on this part of the airplane. It doesn't fit with a serial number of a full airplane or with an immatriculation of plane, but it suits, it might be just a serial number of this specific piece. So I'm quite sure that now in Boeing, they know exactly if this piece belongs to a Boeing 777, and if it does, if it's the MH370. It appears that some specialists also say that the shells that are on this wreckage are just specific of something that spent about a year and a half or 2 years in the water.
Scientists believe the waves and winds that sweep the Indian Ocean could easily carry the debris from the suspected crash site west to the shores of Réunion.
The question now is, of course, what more wreckage might be out there and whether it's heading this way. Reunion Island is a long way from anywhere, and we are still a long way from solving this mystery.
The Malaysian Prime Minister announces that experts have conclusively confirmed that the flaperon found on July 29th is from Flight 370. This debris becomes the first physical evidence that Flight 370 ended in the Indian Ocean. In the following week, a number of claims are made of more debris washing up on surrounding islands and coastlines. Malaysia's government news agency releases a new theory suggesting that Flight 370 may have made a soft landing on the water, floated for some time, and then sank mostly in one piece. On September 3rd, 2015, serial numbers found on internal components of the flaperon allow investigators to conclusively determine, with certainty, that the piece is linked to Flight 370. Investigators analyze predicted oceanic drift patterns for MH370 debris, factoring in ocean currents and wind speeds. The locations of the discovered debris generally align with these predictions. However, not all debris contains identifiable details like serial numbers. The analysis identifies the most probable location of Flight 370 when it entered the water, as being within the southern half of the existing search zone.
Debris could move certainly 600 or 700 kilometers, perhaps, over a 2-week timescale. But it really depends upon whether the currents are traveling in the same direction or whether they've been caught in a vortex, in which case they may be quite close to the area of the original debris field.
Media report the discovery of a suspected horizontal stabilizer on a sandbar in Mozambique, which may have come from a Boeing 777. The object, found by an American tourist the previous weekend, is flown to Australia for examination. The Australian Minister for Transport announces that two pieces of debris, one discovered earlier in March and another found in December 2015, are almost certainly from MH370. A part of an engine cowling is also found on the coast of South Africa. Australia announces that a piece of aircraft debris, believed to be an outboard wing flap, has been found on Pemba Island, off the coast of Tanzania. Malaysia's Transport Ministry confirms it is from Flight 370, based on identifying part numbers and date stamps, and is the largest piece found since the flaperon back in July 2015. A total of 39 pieces were recovered during the search, of which 3 are confirmed to be from MH370, 7 are classified as almost certain, 12 are deemed likely or highly likely, 10 are considered possible, and the rest remain too difficult to accurately classify. Despite the uncertainties, the flaperon, found back in July of 2015, became the first concrete piece of evidence linking the crash to the Indian Ocean. This discovery confirmed that MH370 had indeed ended its flight in these waters. Investigators hoped this breakthrough would provide crucial insights into what happened to the aircraft after its disappearance, and various theories and suspicions were raised to bring them closer to uncovering the mystery. In the aftermath of the disappearance, many theories and estimations arose. New data and information becoming available provided investigators with more conclusive reasons as to what could have possibly happened to Flight 370. During the initial investigation of MH370's contents, the cargo manifest was closely examined. Malaysian police questioned Chinese importers and handlers of around 4,500 kilograms of fruit on board to rule out sabotage. One item on the manifest, however, drew more attention: a pallet of lithium-ion batteries. These batteries, part of a 2,400 kilogram shipment from a Motorola Solutions facility, are known for their flammability and sensitivity to temperature changes. Despite suspicions, none of the recovered debris showed clear signs of an onboard fire. Investigators theorized that a fire might explain the plane's initial turn back towards Malaysia, suggesting the pilot could have been attempting an emergency landing. While lithium-ion battery fires have caused accidents on cargo planes before, investigators concluded that if a fire had occurred between checkpoints Igari and Baitod, and the aircraft continued flying for hours, it would be impossible for the debris to show no signs of fire damage. On the morning of the plane's disappearance, Austria and Italy confirmed that 2 individuals listed on the passenger manifest had not been aboard the flight. Both men's passports had been stolen in Thailand within the past 2 years, raising questions about possible identity fraud. Another passenger, who worked as a flight engineer for a Swiss jet charter company, came under brief suspicion as a potential hijacker due to his perceived aviation skills that could have been relevant to the incident. Interpol later confirmed that the passports of the Austrian and Italian passengers were flagged in its database of stolen passports, but no query was made before the flight. Though concerns about a possible terrorist connection arose, officials stated that no links to terrorism had been found thus far. Malaysian police reveal that the 2 passengers traveling with stolen passports were Iranian men, believed to be asylum seekers attempting to reach Germany, with their tickets set to end in Frankfurt. The head of Interpol later commented, "The more information we get, the more we are inclined to conclude this is not a terrorist incident." In the hours while Flight 370 was still airborne, the aircraft made no attempt to return to Malaysia, nor did it contact ground control to report a fire. This absence of communication led to the theory of hypoxia, a condition that occurs when an aircraft fails to pressurize, incapacitating the crew due to a lack of oxygen at high altitudes. In cases of hypoxia, oxygen masks are deployed throughout the cabin, and protocol dictates that the pilot should immediately descend to a breathable altitude where the emergency oxygen supply is no longer necessary, allowing for an emergency landing. Although military radar tracked the aircraft's altitude early on, this data has been disregarded by investigators due to its inconsistencies and, at times, implausibility. Simulated attempts to replicate the radar's course proved unsuccessful. Investigators have concluded that while subsequent maneuvers over Penang and toward the Indian Ocean were within the capabilities of the autopilot system, the first turn after checkpoint Igari was only possible through manual control by someone on board the aircraft. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a highly experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours accumulated during his 33-year career at Malaysia Airlines, had flown 8,659 of those hours on the Boeing 777. Known for his impressive track record, Zahari was a respected senior pilot with an unblemished professional history. A thorough investigation into his personal life revealed no unusual behavior or irregularities in his financial and medical records. At the time of the disappearance, Zahari was 53 years old and left behind a wife and 3 children. The report revealed that Captain Zahari had a sophisticated flight simulator at home, which he built with the help of online aviation enthusiasts and engineers.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I made as a community
Emails and
service.
message board discussions between Zahari and these communities detailed the simulator's construction. Following MH370's disappearance, many members of these groups came forward to vouch for Zahari's character, noting that it wasn't uncommon for dedicated pilots to have high-quality home simulators. When investigators seized the hard drive from Zahari's simulator, they found it had been wiped. However, they were able to recover data, including a simulated flight that traced a route similar to MH370's, heading northwest over the Strait of Malacca, diverting south and ending in the southern Indian Ocean. This information was initially omitted from investigation reports and only surfaced through a 2016 leak of confidential documents. The recovered flight path raised suspicions and was examined as potential evidence for a murder-suicide theory involving Zahari. This leak fueled media speculation, leading many to assume Zahari was responsible for the plane's disappearance. Since the hard drive was wiped, investigators had to reconstruct the flight path from 7 loose coordinates recovered from an autosave feature in the X-Plane 10 simulator. These coordinates didn't necessarily represent a single route or session, and investigators concluded that the integrity of this data was too weak to support claims of premeditation. The only behavior raising concern about Zahari comes from his final communication with Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control. Upon reaching checkpoint Igari and entering Vietnamese airspace, either Zahari or his first officer should have contacted Ho Chi Minh on frequency 120.9. While Zahari acknowledged this instruction, he didn't repeat the frequency back to ATC, as is standard procedure. Instead, he signed off with a simple Although this abbreviation of protocol stands out, given Zahari's extensive experience, it's not unusual for a seasoned pilot like him to shorten such messages. Was this a minor oversight or a subtle indication that Zahari had no intention of contacting Ho Chi Minh at all? Despite the immense efforts of global teams involved in the search for MH370, the aircraft remains undiscovered. On January 17, 2017, the governments of Malaysia, Australia, and China announced the suspension of the search.
It's so important that we get some form of closure. It's so important that they do not give up the people that we love. In the interest of aviation safety, it's important that they don't give up so easily. So if this were ever to happen again, we want to know that the people responsible will be committed.
I feel that we all taken on this long merry-go-round, something cruel, but I think something totally unavoidable. It is I feel it's a very, very big story beyond you and me. And I think even governments have to play their role, careful with what they say, what they don't say. They will never find this plane. This plane was never meant to be found.
Definitely, we know they ended their lives at the Indian Ocean, as Prime Minister Najib said, last year. It's not the end, although they found something, it's not the end. They still need to find the whole plane and our spouses as well. Yes, we still want them back.
Yeah.
One piece of debris doesn't represent my husband. It just says the plane is there, so now you need to bring everybody back. Only want everybody back, no matter as Lee said, in whatever form. At least we can give them a proper send-off and say goodbye properly.
On October 3rd, the ATSB officially concluded its role in the search, after which the Malaysian government initiated a second search led by American marine robotics company Ocean Infinity in January the following year. After 4 months and nearly 200,000 square kilometers searched, they announced the conclusion of this second search. The aircraft remains unfound.
This does not mean that we have given up on locating MH370.
There is no closure until the plane is found, until we exactly know what happened to the aircraft and to our loved ones on board. Yes, it gets tougher every year because we are all expecting, some answers.
We have absolutely no idea why it disappeared and where it is. And that's not a happy situation to be in for you, for me, and for everybody in the world, and for everybody who flies to their destinations day in and day out. Because if it's happened once, I believe it will happen again.
Without the recovery of the main wreckage, flight data recorder, or cockpit voice recorder, the investigation could not draw definitive conclusions about what happened to MH370. Following the 10th anniversary of the tragic disappearance, Ocean Infinity announced its intention to resume the search, pending approval from the Malaysian government. Claims of yet to be identified new evidence has incited victims' families to further push for this new development. Ocean Infinity's confidence in their technology and strategy could provide a new glimmer of hope for the families of those missing. And maybe one day we will finally uncover definitive answers to what is considered one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time.
A mysterious phone call to an Italian journalist.
Where did you get this information?
And if they do not believe what they are going to say,
Throws an air crash investigation into turmoil.
No, we absolutely have to have more of the wreckage.
There are rumors of a cover-up.
Nobody on the legal side believed us.
Investigators suspect foul play.
I think it's a bomb.
81 people are killed in an instant.
All of a sudden, the airplane was in pieces in the sky.
it was shot down by a missile.
What brought down the passenger plane? A bomb or a missile?
They said that my theory was ridiculous.
The goal that we were presented with was to find the truth.
In the glow of the setting sun, Italia Airlines Flight 870 cruises 29,000 feet above the Mediterranean Sea.
Good evening, 870, maintain 290 over Puma.
Roger. Proceed Latina. Monza.
Roma, 870.
Captain Domenico Gatti and First Officer Enzo Fontana are at the controls of the DC-9.
The crew had the kind of experience that you would hope to see with your own particular crew on the flight that you're just about to take. And the flight itself was short and very easy to do.
Among the 77 passengers is Alberto Bonfietti, a journalist on his way to meet his family in Palermo.
Mio fratello Alberto.
That Friday afternoon, my brother Alberto took that plane to go to Palermo and meet his wife and daughter, who were already there on vacation.
The flight from Bologna to Palermo takes about an hour and a half. But just halfway to their destination, First Officer Fontana is running into a problem.
Look at this, I'm getting nothing.
Try Pons instead.
Nothing.
There's no signal from many of the navigation beacons that normally guide pilots towards Palermo.
870, Roma. It's like a graveyard tonight. We haven't got a single beacon working properly.
Everything is a bit out.
What is your heading? We are at 195.
Without the beacons, the pilots need directions from air traffic control.
I don't
know if you want to keep that heading.
Otherwise, you can go right 15 or 20 degrees.
Okay, we put in 210.
The plane turns and flies into a pocket of turbulence.
High-level turbulence, it's just like, it's like being on a road which has got potholes in it. On many flights that anybody will take at some stage during the journey, you will encounter some degree of turbulence.
The pilots hope a lower altitude will give their passengers a smoother ride.
Let's try to get under this.
This is 870. Is it possible to get 250?
Affirmative. You can start your descent now.
Pilots quite often ask for a change of level. If they've got a little bit of choppiness, which they know will make the passengers uncomfortable or even nervous, then they'll try another level. And that's what we think they were trying to do.
There we go, finally.
There's more good news.
Palermo's coming in well.
The navigation beacons are now working.
And we have the Pons at the ending.
Good. Call back for descent.
Thank you for everything. We'll call you for descent. 870.
The controllers will have no further contact with the pilots until they begin their landing. But just seconds later, Itavia Flight 870 breaks into pieces and disappears from radar.
Itavia 870, wrong. Itavia 870, wrong. We're missing a flight. Itavia 870. It's gone.
Flight 870 has crashed into the Mediterranean Sea.
It's very surreal for a controller to go through an experience like that because you can't quite believe what you're seeing. I mean, accidents are very, very rare. So when you're a part of one, when you're watching one happen, you don't quite believe it.
By morning, Italian search and rescue teams are scanning the waters near the plane's last known position. Family members waiting at the airport are told only that the plane is missing, its fate unknown.
The first words we heard were that the plane was assumed to be lost.
Searchers soon confirmed the worst. There are no signs of any survivors. All 81 passengers and crew are dead, including Alberto Bonfietti.
I bought my brother's ticket for that damn flight and I never saw him again.
The loss of Flight 870 makes news around the world. There seems to be no way to explain why a modern airliner fell from the sky so suddenly. Andrea Purgatori is a well-known reporter for one of Italy's largest daily newspapers.
1980, I was an investigative reporter for Corriere della Sera, which was and is still the most important newspaper in Italy.
On the night of the crash, he gets an astounding phone call.
I received a phone call from an air traffic controller in Rome.
Where did you get this information?
And he said, I cannot talk to you long from this phone, but do not believe what they are going to say, because it was shot down by a missile.
The source points him toward a controversial theory. Flight 870 was caught in the crossfire during a dogfight between NATO and Libyan jets.
There was a situation of tension in the Mediterranean, which was very close to, the tension you have before a war.
In 1980, the Mediterranean is a military hot zone. Italy lies just across the sea from Libya. It's an outlaw nation ruled by Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, an international pariah.
At that time, Gaddafi was like Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden for the United States and most of the Western world.
Has the political tension between Libya and the West somehow claimed the lives of 81 innocent people?
Yes, I can guarantee your identity is safe with me.
Purgatory is convinced he's on the verge of breaking a major international story.
That was the kind of story that, as a reporter, you can find probably once in your life, once in your career.
Okay, let's meet.
But it will take more than 30 years to find out what really happened that night in the skies over Italy. Two days after the Itavia Airlines tragedy, Andrea Purgatori writes a front-page story that shocks Italy and the world.
It's out. I was the first to say, okay, there's a possibility that the DC-9 was hit by a missile.
Purgatori does some digging and comes up with an astonishing theory.
Western jet fighters, probably French, were engaging in an act of war with Libyan airplanes. And the Libyan airplanes were probably hiding themselves behind the DC-9. And the DC-9 was just, in the wrong place, in the wrong moment, and it was hit by one of the missiles.
The Italian government dismisses early media reports that a missile brought down Flight 870 and launches an official investigation into the crash.
The Italian Air Force decided to give a press conference, which they said that my theory was ridiculous.
38 bodies have been recovered from the crash site. But most of the wreckage from Flight 870 has sunk to the bottom of the Mediterranean. Investigators have little to go on.
Is this all we have?
The early investigators of this accident didn't have very much to look at. There wasn't very much wreckage.
They hope air traffic controllers on duty at the time of the crash will have more information.
There was some problem with the beacons on the night, but otherwise everything seemed fine.
But the controllers have no idea what went wrong.
Palermo's coming in well.
Alright, call back for descent.
They heard no sign of trouble from the crew.
Thank you for everything. We'll call you for descent, 870.
If it's a slowly gathering emergency where things go wrong bit by bit until the aircraft becomes uncontrollable, the pilots are sure as hell going to tell somebody. They didn't have time to. So whatever it was had been really sudden.
A mid-air collision could explain the accident. The controllers can't say for sure if there were other aircraft nearby. Their radar is tuned to detect airliners and may not have picked up smaller planes.
This is Autotessa.
Investigators need a solid lead. They have no proof that a missile brought down the plane, but there's no proof of any other cause either.
We need to look at every possible explanation.
An investigator, of course, if, for example, the press is speculating about the aircraft having been shot down, the investigators will read that like other people do, but they'll be keeping an open mind.
They study other incidents involving the same type of plane.
They were casting around for any historic evidence that might tell them